I love the talk we just had on medicine. I have a comment about that. Something I just find astonishing, remarkable. I'm so impressed by this. Are you ready? Here's what happens. Someone is diagnosed. I'm making up a very common example for the purposes of this explanation. Somebody's diagnosed with terminal cancer. The doctor says, you got 6 months to live. You say, you mind if I get a second opinion? Of course, go ahead. Go to a second doctor. You got 5 months to live. Go to a third doctor. 7 months to live. So basically, you're going to be dead in 6 months, plus or minus. Okay? What happens? You're alive a year later. Okay? You're alive 2 years later. 3 years later, the cancer's in remission. 5 years later, it's gone from your body. You happen to have been a religious person, and over that time you were praying. People were praying for you. Here's what's astonishing, is that if you are that person, you are more likely to believe that God cured you, this invisible force, creator of the universe, cured you, than that you had 3 idiot doctors diagnose you. I am astonished by this fact. The American Medical Association, is that what they call it, AMA? Has got to be the most powerful organization in the world, because no one questions those diagnoses. They'll credit whatever else was going on because they were sure they were going to die. And I can tell you this, I taught physics to pre-med students who became doctors. Not all of them are smart, I assure you. Not only that, they're all trained in the same system. So 3 separate doctors that all went through the same system of medical schools, that's not actually 3 different opinions. It's the same opinion, just nuanced by what the person had for breakfast that morning. It's not 3 different opinions. Now, just to confirm this, there's a colleague of mine in the front row. Have you taught physics to pre-medical students? No. You have not, so I don't have a second opinion on what this is. So I'm just impressed that it's impossible for people to think that they just had idiot doctors diagnose them, or that it was a diagnostic failure. I'm sorry, say again?
I failed more pre-med students than I failed pre-law.
Okay, we have a Physics 101 professor here who said he's failed more students who are pre-med than those who are pre-law. Yeah, it's astonishing. It's astonishing who ends up being our doctors. I got to keep going. I have way more to come, okay? Swami levitation. We've seen this, okay? Now, it turns out, now, don't criticize it. It turns out there is no law of physics that prevents this, okay? This is physically possible. And so you do the calculation of how to make that possible. And the only way you can make that happen is by invoking Newton's second law of motion. And by doing that, you have to consume mass quantities of beans. By my count, about 1,000 cans. Then your anal sphincter has to be really tight to hold in the methane effluences that are ready to burst forth. At which point, you let it go, and then you levitate. For as long as you have gas to provide it. That's, by the way, how the space shuttle, not with beams, but it's gas coming out one direction, the recoil goes in the other direction. Now, I found this picture on the internet. This is like combines everything I just said. It's a levitated can of beans. I thought that was kind of cool. The moon hoax. We got people out there who say we never went to the moon. First of all, we should be proud that we live in a culture that has technologies so advanced that some members of that same culture are in denial of it. That's a statement of how advanced we are. So we should be a little more sensitive to their disbelief. Because it's astonishing. It's just, we do astonishing things. And some people are so astonishing they just can't believe it. So here's what you do. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Saturn V rocket. Launching once again, sending gas out one side and the recoil up the other. Just to remind you how this works, I'm sorry I can't point to two at one moment at the same time, but all of this is fuel. And the astronauts are right there, okay? In that little bitty capsule right there. That's where the astronauts are. They're sitting on a controlled bomb. All right, so all you have to do is calculate how much fuel is there, invoking the rocket equation. Because when you invoke the rocket equation, you learn that most of the fuel you're burning now is just to launch to a higher point the fuel you have yet to burn. This is how that works. So for every increment of distance you have to go, you've got to have that much bigger spaceship to enable it, to carry the fuel you have yet to burn. And so you do this calculation and you show that this is enough fuel to carry these three astronauts and their rover out of low Earth orbit to the moon and back. All the fuel is there. Where else do you think this was going? Okay, to like the A&P grocery store? Where is this? What do you think this thing is doing? So the moon hoaxers just challenge them to learn the rocket equation and apply the math, to do the math. And then they go away and they never come back. By the way, to show you how big this is, it's huge. Okay, these are people right here, standing, approaching one of the rocket nozzles of the 5 at the base of the Saturn V rocket. Okay, this thing is huge. All fuel. All fuel. More. The Mars virus. This one, most of you probably don't know about. Phil and I know all about it, okay? It started innocently enough. 5 years ago, 2003. Mars, as you may know, is in an elliptical orbit, sometimes closer to the sun, sometimes farther. So are we in an elliptical orbit, sometimes farther, sometimes closer. If you look at the combinations of our orbits, what situation do you need for Earth to be closest to Mars? What you want is Earth farthest from the sun and Mars closest to the sun. That pinches that distance at the most you can. And then you get really close. Okay, in 2003, we were closer to Mars than we had been in 60,000 years. Well, all people paid attention to was the word close and the number 60,000 in years. And it just took off. And people said, oh, on that particular night in August, Mars will be the size of the full moon, all right? And so this went on. It even captured page 1 story, okay? Close up. And in these pages, it talks about you might need sunglasses at night because Mars will be so large and bright. Now, I'll tell you how that worked. You ready? Here's how it goes. Here's how it goes. Where are we now? We're in like Vegas? Which way is west? Anybody know which way west is? That way, thank you. So let me come over here. Now, why did I believe you, sir? Because 20 other hands pointed the same way. It's not that I have that much confidence in you per se, okay? I did a quick average, and it's this way. All right, so here we go. I'm in Vegas. So, yes, we were closer than we ever been in 60,000 years. By how much? Here's how it goes. You ready? I'm standing here, and suppose I did this. You ready? I have I've never before been this close to Japan. Okay? So it was a little closer than it is any other time Earth and Mars swing around in their orbits. And here's what happens. That started on the internet. Every August, the same news story circulates. They forgot that it only happened in that year, and they forgot that it was a nothing event anyway. So you're going to see it again. I call it the Mars virus, because people want to send it around. Fear of numbers. Oh, don't get me started, okay? Again, 21st century America, people who make the iPod, people who launched the Saturn V rocket. This is the country we live in, except 80% of all the buildings on Broadway in Manhattan, I could have done it for any street, but I did it for Broadway. 80% have panels that look like this. There is no 13th floor. Not only was that true in 80% of the buildings in New York, it's true of this hotel. So what does it say for our future when we have people afraid of a number? What does that mean? I don't know, but it scares the hell out of me. Not only that, we fear negative numbers. Why do you have to go into a hotel, go into an elevator of a tall building and it's 53432 lobby SSB SSB? Can I buy a vowel, please? I don't know what the hell these things are. They're afraid to go negative.